Hi there. It's high noon, so we're going to get started. Welcome everyone to our 2024 Chapter Awards Roundtable. I'm Mary Fitch, Executive Director. Katie Spencer, our Director of Education and Program Strategy, is cleverly hidden behind that DAC logo there.
Hello.
And also on with us is William Hendricks, who is with our Design Excellence Committee. William, why don't you wave a little there? There you go. And we are just delighted to have, I guess, 3 of our 5 chapter award jurists with us now to show you the 23 projects that received recognition this year. There were there were 150 projects submitted, which is a slight raise from last year, so that's a good thing. With us on the call, and they will very carefully wave as I read their names: then Marie Duval Decker, FAIA of Duval Decker in Jackson, Mississippi; Aaron Sterling Lewis, FAIA of Open Studio Design in Raleigh, North Carolina; Dina Griffin, FAIA of Interactive Design Architects in Chicago, Illinois. And we hope that Hans Bootzer, FAIA from Bootzer Architects and Urbanism in Oklahoma City, will join us eventually. Our 5th juror, Sarah Grant from MBB Architects in New York, was unable to join us today, but we thank her and all of our jurists for their service. So a virtual round of applause for our jurists. Yes, we can hear you out in the audience. Thank you so much. Our juries are selected by the chapter's Design Excellence Committee. If you'd like to contribute to that effort, please contact the committee, which can be found on the dcarchcenter.org website under committees. And we thank the Design Excellence Committee for their stellar work with this jury. The Chapter Design Awards program recognizes excellence in the categories of architecture, interior architecture, historic resources, and urban design master planning. The program not only demonstrates the value of good design, but the wide range of services performed by architects. It is conducted independently of other awards programs sponsored by the Institute and other AIA components. As it says in our call for entries, the jury has the sole discretion whether to give an award or a citation or not. In their deliberations, our jurors were asked to consider design quality, the context, the framework for design excellence, and project size, scale, or budget. The jury met on April 15th to make their decisions. There was a lot of discussion and a little category trading. One project you're going to see was submitted in a different category. Our jury felt that it was better suited in another. I should also tell you that there were no awards given in the master planning category. But as we say, our jury has the sole discretion and they can move things around as they please. We are now going to show you the 23 winning projects by category, starting each category with citations and then moving to awards. I'll announce the winner, and then one or more of our jurists will offer some jury comments. Once we finish the announcements, we will open up for questions, and William Hendricks of the Chapter's Design Excellence Committee will pose some broader questions. So with that, Katie, let's start with the architecture category. And first is a citation for design for integration for the H2 Alley Home by Demian Wilbur Architects. So jurors, just dive in.
This project is one of my favorites regarding size, location, and making use of space that would otherwise go undeveloped. But I just love the attention to detail on this image. I especially love the cutout so that the car would fit in the garage. That was one of my favorite things. But just an elegant treatment of an otherwise unusable space.
And we really loved also the use of materials. Thought that it was very appropriate for an alley and also elegant.
Great. So next is a citation for design for economy for the Rubel Museum DC and Gallery 64 by Beyer Blinder Bell Architects and Planners.
One thing we recognized on this one is it's often so hard to fund historic buildings, and it was really commendable to utilize this large new development to be able to preserve this real community asset, and that preservation was done really well.
They also went above and beyond minimum requirements for affordable housing, and that was stellar.
Great. And our next citation is for the design for resources for Van Ness Elementary School by iStudio Architects.
So they really took, this was a renovation, a restoration, an addition, and it was all done so simply and then integrated into what is really a sustainable and environmentally rich campus now in this urban environment. So just really well done.
Okay, our first award in architecture is for the DC Bilingual Public Charter School by Horde Copeland Mocht.
Really loved the texture and attention to detail with the cladding in this project, and the marriage between old and new is really well done.
Yeah, very active placement of materials and just very inviting too. Just thought this was a beautiful project.
Really expands the program on a pretty tight site, but it still maintains the beautiful character of the site.
And the Embassy of Australia by KCCT wins our next award.
I love the facade. It seemed, oh my, sorry, can you hear me? It seems to really come alive with the different variations of exposure to the sun, but you can see how the culture has influenced the color and the tone and the types of materials used in this space down to the artwork that was placed in this building.
There's an impressive amount of warmth inside that building, even though the scale is quite large.
Manages to be really alive, but also calm.
And our next award is for the John Volpe National Transportation Systems Center by SOM.
My favorite part of this building was how it really exhibited, first of all, it's stunning. I think it's a beautiful building, beautiful use of materials. But the science on display is my favorite part, where you're at ground level and you open these overhead doors and you can see what's going on and share what's going on the inside. As far as research is concerned, just thought it really brought it down to a human level at street level or street side.
And they really puzzled a high performance set of program elements, and also I'm sure technical and environmental requirements, and made it feel just effortless. You know how hard it was to do that, but it just feels like it took no effort at all, both in the spaces and the form.
Yeah, and I think that the elegance of all of the decisions made, interior and exterior, give it a timelessness that's remarkable.
And the KCI Parking Garage by BNIM is our next winner.
This was a remarkable acceptance and resistance at the same time. They really understood the facts of this difficult, repetitive, huge program, and then used it to their advantage to make a beautiful form with really great spaces when you move through it.
And it really addresses the stress involved when traveling. I thought it was a welcoming site, a welcoming type of garage. It's atypical. The way the lighting and the use of materials really helps in lowering the stress of a traveler.
Definitely above and beyond for a parking garage. I was thrilled that we were able to give an award to a parking garage. It's awesome.
And the OBO Niame New Embassy Complex, New Embassy Campus by Page is our next winner.
I think this one is, the accolades are similar on a smaller scale to the Australian embassy, but the influence of culture in the finishes and the color and the warmth of materials being very inviting.
Yeah, the vibrancy of this one with, like Dina said, the color, but also the textures is really beautiful.
Another example of a very complicated set of requirements that are just formed together and made to feel like it's all meant to be.
And our next winner is Raymond Elementary School Renovation and Addition by Studios Architecture.
Really knitted these sort of light-filled modern spaces together with this traditional classroom building, pulled in difficult uses and knitted together the gymnasium and other spaces, and it just all feels at home when it's done.
I think this is one of the schools where we all were jealous that we could not attend, but just very, very vibrant and a nice marriage of old and new.
And the next winner is Cube Architecture for Storyboard.
Feel like I'm walking by a puzzle. I just love the way this speaks to the street and is not a typical flat approach to a facade. Really makes the street come alive, and of course its impact on the interior spaces as well, bringing light in and views.
And while it's a really novel approach to a row house, it still feels somehow already timeless as another adaptation of a row house.
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing the playfulness in this project and also the seriousness, you know, it's kind of a beautiful balance between the two.
Next award is the Episcopal Church of the Resurrection by Cunningham Quill Architects.
It's not very easy to put such a shapely form in relation to such a large form and have them talk to each other like these two do. And then to have the forms talk to each other and to be so excited about the fact of the church being involved in solving housing problems. It's just a great pairing, both architecturally and programmatically.
And the University of Virginia Gilmer Hall and Chemistry Renovation by Perkins and Will is our last architectural award.
think we all remarked on the size of the renovation, and the size of the project and use of materials.
And again, leaning into this, it's a great building, and it didn't have to be sort of utterly changed to be great. So it's just a sort of refined and respectful reinvigoration of this building. So
Yeah.
it just feels economical and effective.
Great, we're going to move on to historic resources and adaptive reuse. And our first citation is for Design for Equitable Communities, and it's for the Church Street United Methodist Church renovation and addition by Hartman Cox Architects.
It's not uncommon in a church addition where the goal is ease of access to really defy or cause trouble with the beauty of the existing structure. And this addition did not do that. It totally fits in. It totally makes the access to the church better for pedestrians, drivers, neighborhood, and it just feels like it was always there.
Mm.
Our next citation winner for Design for Wellbeing, Integration, and Discovery is the John Eaton School by CGS Architects.
Yeah, wasn't another one of the projects where I wish I was young enough to attend these schools. The use of color and material, just incredible, very beautiful renovation.
And another example of knitting modern and traditional forms together in a way that's just really inviting.
And the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg Center by Ennead wins our first award.
I love the exterior of this project. The skin of this project is just, I mean, it's intricate. It's incredibly done, very well done.
Another example of taking sort of massive, already existing asset, and with these very difficult and strategic renovations and additions and changes, you just make it feel brand new and more useful and more clear in the way that you move through the spaces.
Bonster Hairsign Architects wins the next award for 508 K Street.
We spend a lot of time talking about this project and just how special it is, not only for the outcome, but also everything that it stands for. That this whole block could have been completely demolished and turned into high density, and for it to just have this respect of original character, and marrying that up to the new surroundings was really impressive to us.
It's really a gift back to all the new construction around it.
And it keeps the scale manageable.
Great, and the Embassy of Switzerland Chancery renovation by DLR Group wins an award.
It's just such an elegant project. The use of materials and the restraint is just really remarkable.
And the judgments that had to be made about what the new finishes would be, I'm sure the research was done and described in some of these diagrams, but there's always judgment at the end of that, and all of the choices here were just exceptional.
And the Kirk Family YMCA by BNIM is our next award.
This project made me want to start working out. Which says a lot. No, but seriously, this project it just blew my mind. It's so elegant and beautiful, and we were so happy to see the project saved, the building saved, and what was done to it was just absolutely incredible.
I've never seen such a beautiful basketball court. It's just, and the building is just phenomenal. And I love the treatment of the facade and saving of the facade
Mhm.
and how well it marries into the new construction or vice versa. It's even got a little soccer pitch.
And our final award in historic resources and adaptive reuse is the Virginia May Center Cathedral College by Smith Group.
I often talk in my office about the marathon of architectural projects, how you have to, for so often years, you have to just keep stopping yourself and asking, are we making the right decisions? And this is definitely an example of that. Every single move was made just right.
And now we move to interior architecture, and our first award goes our first citation in design for resources goes to the Washington DC Architecture Studio, SOM.
Got to be doing well if you get architects to give an architecture studio an award, I tell you, or a citation.
It seemed to us that this project went as far as it possibly could with maybe not the largest budget. And we really appreciated that, and the variety of spaces and just choice of materials is really lovely.
It also resists the sort of drive to be sort of novel and in a way that just still feels refined and timeless.
The first award in interior architecture goes to Lofted Space, the Mina Residence by Reform Architecture and Design.
This project blew my mind.
Exquisite.
It's just like, I mean, it's in my mind, it's what every architect dreams to have, this personal project or a project of this scale where you get to think about every single square inch, every single screw. It's just absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, that is, you're right. Amazing is the right word because there's nothing left untouched. It's just and beautifully detailed.
Even the way it connects with the existing house in that past image where there's light being shared from space to space. It's just, yeah, outstanding.
And our next award is the Michael R. Klein Center for Jobs and Justice by ZGF.
This
And
project
it's-
just really expresses what's going on inside in a wonderful way. The sort of cleanliness of the white and the cooking and then the vibrance of the color popping into it.
Yeah, it's in a very exciting space without being too trendy or flashy, which is an easy thing to do, I think.
And I like that you have that visual access from the street to see what's going on. And just very great use of color and materials to bring people into the space and want to stay in the space.
And speak of the program and the need to support it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our final award in interior architecture is Urban Power by Healy Architecture.
This is another project, pretty small scale, but every bit of it was thought about very elegantly.
And kind of unlike the other one in a minimalist way, right? Every surface that wasn't treated, but every surface that was treated had a reason for that move, how the light was going to hit it, how you were going to occupy it. It was just very integrated with the use of the space.
And I thought the use of the factoring in the way the light comes into the space, the shadow within the space, everything was just done beautifully. And we love the fact that there's a dog in the picture.
And as DC architects know, we also have a grand award winner, which is the best of the best. So the one that the jury felt was really the most exemplified great work for DC and architecture overall. And if Katie, you go to the next slide, we're not going to tell you what it is.
Wow.
This year we're going to have a design awards celebration on October 1st, and you'll have to come to find out. So all of we're looking forward to seeing all of you at that event, and this will start off Architecture Month. So that should be a really wonderful event to attend, and then you'll get to find out who won the grand awards. So that's our slideshow. So Katie, if you wanted to, are there any questions in the chat yet?
Sure. Actually, this question is a good and relevant one, but I think the questions that William has is going to probably start to answer this, and then we can segue into it. So, Bill, if you want to go ahead and start with your two questions, then I'll address this one from the audience.
I would be happy to. I want to start off with congratulations to all the chapter award and citation award winners. And also like to, on behalf of the Design Excellence Committee and the chapter, thank all our jurors for the time during the design jury and today for these discussions. At the end of the jury deliberations, we had a conversation about a number of topics. And I want to go to a couple of those to start a conversation. And the first question, these are not the same order as we did before. So the first question I want to ask is, did the jurors find any unique design issues that differentiate DC projects from other chapters or your chapters in all or the four categories? And I know there was a number of things that were discussed just to start things off. One of them was the budgets that could perhaps be a metric, the prevalence of multifamily residential, and the unique interior solutions. But let's go back to the general question. Are there any unique design issues that you found really differentiate DC from other chapter awards you've seen?
I'm always amazed at being a Chicagoan at the limited height of the buildings, the restriction in DC, that always stands out. But it also really, I think it helps develop an even better project with those types of restrictions, because creativity obviously is required to finish or to design a project like that, but knowing that you have a ceiling, it's, I think, even more challenging.
That is
Yeah, and I know
definitely a unique
I-
challenge for all of our projects.
Mhm.
People always want to say, can we go higher?
Of course.
Sorry to Aaron.
I know I was the one who made the comment about the budgets, and I practice in North Carolina and don't often see the budgets I imagine a lot of the projects we looked at had. And I think to that end, I was also impressed with that said that there was a lot of restraint within that, which is to me yields good design. And I think that's probably why, as a jury today, we use the word timeless a number of times. And that's a huge compliment, I think, to the designers who submitted the work that we saw.
I hadn't thought about this one until we were going through them today, but the school projects that we had, these sort of adaptive reuse and additions, and they were different firms, but they were just consistently good, and that is not common. There's a lot of school work out there that just doesn't rise to the level of these school projects that we reviewed, and it was impressive.
Would you also include, because we saw a number of historic resource projects that were, in a sense, adaptive reuse as well as the schools. Were there other things that you guys noticed in adaptive reuse by the site or the addition or the transformation of buildings that were really unique in general terms?
I think it seems related to that low rise comment that Dina made. You know, there just is an opportunity in a city that stays at that level to have these site moves that bring the ground to life. There's still light that can come down to them, and the architects are taking advantage of that, it seems.
I was happy to see as many projects of that sort that were submitted. I know that in our area that's growing so much as is DC, we tend to just not have the same amount of respect for existing buildings in the ways that we probably should.
Great. Katie, is there a question that from the participants that might be fit into that category?
They're mostly, the question that we have is the questionnaire, or he asks if how the jury feels about the local DC chapter awards being given to large national firms and projects that are not in the DC region. So if you, all of the projects that are submitted that are outside of the DC region are submitted by DC AIA members. So if the jury wants to speak to that at all, we would like to hear your insights.
Typically align with the policy of the local chapter, and this is pretty common, so it's not surprising to do that, and it's common across juries. I would say it's not atypical.
I agree.
Yeah.
On another topic that we discussed, which might lead into other discussions from the audience, has to do with how has the framework for design and the 10 measures, which the DC chapter has combined into 3 groups to make it easier to review, but how have those 10 measures impacted projects? And more importantly, how has it impacted the design jury's review of projects from your guys' experience?
Well, I think there were some projects where we were looking for the check mark to say, okay, this fulfills this and this, or but there were some where we felt that it did not satisfy the requirements. We were looking for it, but it wasn't there, and I think changing the definition, My apologies.
frameworks.
Yes, thank you. I just think that we were looking for all of them to really meet the demand of whatever category they said that they were complicit in, and that wasn't the case.
Would that align with and I think one of the comments that came out of our discussion is how the macro story of the project connected to the 10 measures. Is that somewhat what you're alluding to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up in checking the boxes, as Dina said, and to forget one of two things. The one thing is you might forget the overall story of the project, or the overall design question or design proposition that is made, and you can check all the boxes, but if there's not an integrative idea guiding your team, it's really hard to achieve that design excellence. And then I think what Dina, correct me if I'm wrong if you weren't saying this, but the boxes are there, and they're diverse, because you don't have to check. You can not have checked some, and it's okay to say, well, this
Right.
project didn't do that, but we did this over here. And so I think we all felt like it's important to be extremely honest if you really believe you checked that box or not.
Right. Thank you.
And I think one of the jurors suggested, and I can't remember, this was part of our discussion, is to look at results-oriented impact of the 10 measures and see how projects rise above design. And where I'm like to go with this, I'm in looking at the jury winner, the awards winners, many of them did exactly that. There was a lot of rising above design to a greater goal. Did you find that to be uniform enough among projects, or do you think we need to be concentrating on the results-oriented impact more?
I think we all can. There's no amount of results-oriented impact we can, because it's so hard to do this
Yeah.
work, right? Like
Yeah.
you just get involved in the day-to-day of it and the complexity of each decision. And so, yeah, I think all of us can benefit from saying, wait a minute, what's the goal? So I think that's just true across the board in our profession, because we can get so caught up in how hard it is.
Before I go on to the next topic or conversation or questions, Katie, is there anybody else from the participants that have any questions?
Not for the jury. We have had a few questions come through about when these will be on our website. They're going to be posted pretty much directly after this call ends. So I just wanted to address that. We don't have any others for the jury right now. If anyone does have
Okay.
questions, please do feel free to drop those into the Q&A box.
Yeah, please drop them in. Please add on to the comments that we're making here. But I want to move to then another question we talked about, the way the projects were presented. And the question was, does the jury have any general observations, advice, or suggestions based off of their experience on how we can improve, is a chapter can improve our presentations, and or perhaps we absolutely nailed it and, raw team, we were actually great. One of the comments that came back that I'm just going to toss out as uniform defense for jurors is that sometimes too much text makes it very difficult to review a project. Everybody's nodding their head.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think there was in general terms, I think there was you guys felt that on some of the projects that really stood out, the use of diagrams and the way they were presented to tell the story were overall very, very, very strong this year.
Yes, I also recall us talking about how some of the projects could have benefited from including a little bit more information on context.
Hmm.
Some did a really great job, but there were some where I think it could have really helped. And given that there didn't seem to be a page limit, we thought that was a fair comment or observation to make, and would encourage, the more understanding you can give a group about how decisions were made based on the surroundings, the better.
And how would you, in a very broad way, define the different contexts that you think are important, not just the physical context, but there are other contexts that are important that we should bring to light in our presentations?
Yeah, I mean, what a great question. I think that it doesn't just have to be physical surroundings. It could be other information that's somehow represented about how decisions are made, the surrounding community and the makeup of that community and things like that. I like thinking about it that way. It's not just, what's right next to this or what's above that or whatever, but it could be a lot richer.
Yeah, social, economic, historical. We've been working to bring all that forward and tell it in our own work. And I think as a juror, when you just zoom into a place, you make assumptions that may not be correct if you don't have that as a grounding for looking at the work. And I agree with Erin, and not just physical, social, economic, cultural, historical. That's what we're all engaged in, contributing to, hopefully, that line of a community.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important. We talk about community engagement prior to the project, during the project, and even after the project, and just kind of documenting that progress would be extremely helpful.
And often for us, there are things that you learn from the community, and then there are things that you just learn through basic research, and trying to make sure you do some of that, because every square foot of a place isn't generally, the history isn't just being researched. So we as architects get a chance when we go into this site to say, what has happened here historically, and to bring that story forward.
Well, to connect with one of the previous comments, because of height and because of the unique context within our city, I think I know that most architects, if not all architects, are trying to integrate that context into projects. And I would hope that in the presentations we had that came through, especially some of the urban insertions that were done. Always have to struggle with that context. One we already talked about with cost as a metric from before, but do you think that presentation should be more deliberate in talking about the limited budget or the unlimited budget, or somewhere in between, about decisions as part of the decision-making process on how design was done?
Yes, that's very helpful. I mean, and again, being honest, this was an unlimited budget. Therefore, we said, here's what we can do. Or this was an extremely limited budget, and that meant this. So, just honesty and how you approach that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Honesty is what maybe can be difficult for some. That it can skew things to not be honest, but it is helpful. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Before I go to the sort of last question discussion, Katie, are there any other questions from the participants?
Yep, we have one that harkens back to something you were talking about earlier
That's
with
great.
the categories. Do you feel does the jury feel the category structure correlates to the project work being submitted? And what do we think about adding different categories or new categories?
I think they generally did. I mean, we made the one adjustment, and it was really only that one. And it feels like a good, not over the top set of categories. I think I've been on several juries where if something doesn't fit, it doesn't mean it doesn't get considered. So, you know, if there was anything that doesn't quite fit, it still gets considered.
Just as a side question, I remember in our discussion that you guys were using hearts as part of your voting. Did that seem to make it more fun
Yes, for me, yes, I like to. I,
instead of
I
stars or
started
little
that.
dots?
Yes,
Yeah.
because you score in these certain ways, but certain projects that we looked at, I drew hearts next to my notes just because they really struck a chord in me.
That's great. That's great. I think the final question is a very general one, and it aligns, Katie, with a question from the participant about categories. But one of the things we always want to do is keep our awards fresh, exciting, and innovative. And the question I would have from your experiences with other juries or other chapters, your own chapters, is there anything that we should consider to perhaps keep things a little bit more spirited and exciting, or are we right in line with where we should be from your guys' opinion?
I mean, my experience, this seems par for the course. Like, I thought the projects that were submitted were, very interesting, and I thought the categories were great. Um, I, I can't think of anything right now that I would change other than minimizing the words.
Of course.
And I agree. I just to offer other things, there've been in other components, unbuilt categories, emerging professional categories, or detail categories. And those can be fun, I think. But the key to them is making sure that you understand that they're slightly different and write the difference in. So, if you don't, unbuilt needs to be there for a reason. Like, it's not just generating hype for when it's built. And it's, like, why do you have an unbuilt category? Why do you have an emerging professionals category? Like in emerging professionals, it's real important to be clear about, who is responsible for what, and still celebrate those emerging professionals as individual designers. And, you have to just walk that line and figure out how your program promotes that well. And then details can be fun as well. But the issue with any of those categories is you really do have to be thoughtful about how you write the requirements for those, because they're slightly different than the other
Right.
categories.
Right. And in DC, we actually have 3 different awards programs, and one of them is specifically unbuilt. And I guess that would also cover emerging talent. So you only got to see one of our 3 awards. And I think we talked about this a little last time, and it had to do with kind of residential and where that fits in. So we also have a separate residential awards program here in DC. I have no further questions. Katie, are there any on the from the attendees?
Yes, so this is, again, piggybacking to a previous question that we were talking about with the awards presentations and how we submit them to the jury. Somebody says that they're noticing a trend in photography where the images are processed until they resemble perfect renderings to bear no resemblance to how structures might be perceived in real life. And that the lighting conditions may or may not be accurate or real. Did the jury go into this or discuss this at all?
I don't recall us discussing it, mostly because I think that's just a reality, and it has been for a really long time. And I personally don't feel like I saw anything that was so over the top that required any sort of comment or discussion. I mean, the person making the comments absolutely right. But nothing was so grossly doctored up, in our opinion, or I should say my opinion, that we made it part of a discussion.
I agree.
And I hope we can count on some basic honesty there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There is that, and I think it's an important question because, you know, a snap photograph, a single photograph of a thing that you experience in time and in space, you know, making an adjustment to a shadow that looks like something it's not, or, you know, there are things that you do just because it doesn't communicate the space well. And I think you just have to have an ethic when you're doing that about, you know, whether or not you're being honest about the experience of the building
Mhm.
over time. And I think that's why it gets done, because it's a snap, it's a moment, you know, in time when the sun is where it is and the shadow is where it is. And so there are times when you make an adjustment, but it's just about trying to make sure it doesn't look overly glaring, because that's not how it is in the experience. But there's just, there should be an ethic in that, in the way you do it.
Well, and as a general comment, I want to thank your observations. Annually, in December or January, we hold a symposium, conversation, or whatever you want to call it, on how to best create these presentations. And we give advice to firms on how to, you know, what are the important things to consider in putting these awards submissions together. And some of these are consistent with themes from the past, but you've offered some very unique things that we're going to plug into that to, you know, help firms, small and large, improve their presentations for these award submittals. So thank you very much for your observation. Do you guys have any
Yeah, so William,
finishing comments, or Mary, you want to take over?
yeah, well, William, one other thing that I noticed from the jury is not, you don't have to show a picture of every single thing. I think there was some editing that you recommended. I believe there was one submission that had 47 pages. So so if you want to talk about editing a little bit on that score.
I think
Yeah,
we
I
like
think.
that there was, oh, sorry,
Oh,
Irene, go
no,
ahead.
you go ahead. You go ahead.
I think we love that there was no page limit, you know,
Yeah.
but then you still should think, what should I show?
Yeah.
Or what should I show 4 times?
Yeah. I agree.
Great. Well, Erin, Dina, Anne-Marie, we're so grateful for your insights and for the time you've taken to look at the work of our chapter. You reviewed it all before the jury happened, and then we spent several hours together going through the jury, and then William popped up and you had an even more conversation about design in Washington, D.C. So we really appreciate that. And if there's anything our chapter can do for you to thank you, we'll be happy to do that. And I think with that, we're just going to close out and wish everyone a wonderful weekend, even though it's going to rain here in DC. And as Katie says, we'll get those awards up very shortly, and we will get information out to folks about the upcoming events in October. So thank you all. Thank you very much. We're going to do another virtual round of applause for our
Thank
jurors.
you. Thank
Yay.
you.
Thank
And
you
thank you.
for the invitation and
And
congratulations.
thanks, architects, for the fine work.
Yes, congratulations.
Great. All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, you too.
Bye.